Meanwhile, the Isle of Man Business Roadshow has returned to South Africa for a sixth time. Under the theme Global Business, Local Stability, the Isle of Man's role in mitigating risk in a complex world. The event aims to demonstrate how the Isle of Man provides a safe and secure platform for wealth creation at a time where global markets navigate post-election uncertainties and shifting economic landscapes. Marion De Carte, Senior Client Relationship Manager for Boston Limited, joins us now for greater perspective. Thank you so much for your time, Marion. I understand that the Isle of Man is self-governing, but with its proximity to the UK, an economy that has been dealing with macroeconomic headwinds, is there a level of influence on the Isle of Man?
Yes, there is. The Isle of Man is part of the UK Customs and Excise Net. So that means we're part of the VAT regime of the UK. However, all other taxes are separate. We do our overnight banking in the UK. King Charles is the head of state of the Isle of Man. We do have our own parliament. We are a crown dependency. We import a lot of goods from the UK, but we do have farms and we do have, for example, cheese manufacturers. So we're fairly independent, but we do have some reliance on the UK.
Well, let's actually talk about the actual economy of the Isle of Man. What are the pillars that the Isle of Man economy depends on?
Okay. The largest sector of the Isle of Man economy is the finance sector, and that's about 48%. Now, the finance sector makes up banking, insurance, corporate service providers, legal and accounting service providers. So that's the largest sector. We do have independent financial regulators per sector. The Isle of Man has a strong e-gaming sector as well. You may know the names Jarivco and Microgaming. These businesses actually started in Durban and are in Durban, and we have a lot of South African staff on the Isle of Man.
Okay. Well, I mean, just looking at, the kind of appeal that South Africa has to the Isle of Man, because the Isle of Man Indaba is in its sixth edition in South Africa. Why keep coming back to the country? And really, what is the appeal of the South African investor?
Okay, well, firstly, the Isle of Man and South Africa have strong ties going back quite a long way because of the mining industry. There was tin mining in the Isle of Man, and as we know, there's a lot of mining in South Africa. But the Isle of Man is unique in other ways as well. It's extremely stable. It has 1,000-year-old parliament or democracy. It's the oldest continuous parliament in the world, democracy in the world. It's very safe. It's in the top 3 safest jurisdictions to live in the world. So that's very good. And then we've Moody AA3 rating, and we're whitelisted. So we have all those credentials.
And also just the appeal for the South African investor to go into the Isle of Man. Where has South African investor appetite fallen in the investment landscape there? Maybe looking at company expansion, financial market diversification, property market?
It's all very broad.
Okay.
Global headquarters, we have family trusts if it's a trust business, property, commercial property, and commercial property in particular, the Isle of Man comes into its own because it's part of the VAT network. On commercial buildings, you can reclaim all the VAT. If you do a development or maintenance, all of the VAT is reclaimable, so that's really good. Trading entities, but with trading entities in particular, but all entities, I would say you need to get professional advice, but trading entities, transfer pricing, you really do need transfer pricing specialists when you come to trading entities. But we're extremely broad in our offering and we're bespoke as well. So if we're able to meet particular needs
And also, I mean, you spoke about VAT earlier on. What are the key tax considerations that South African investors need to dig through when thinking of diversifying into the Isle of Man?
Okay, well, the first thing is our tax rate is generally 20%, is generally
Yeah.
0%. It is 20% on Isle of Man properties. We have no inheritance tax. We have no capital gains tax. Our personal tax is 21%. And there's a tax cap of £200,000 per year for the ultra high net worth individual. The other consideration I would say for an investor is if you are going to invest into a portfolio, make sure that the income from that investment covers your professional fees and advice. And whatever you do, please get professional advice before you start your journey. You need local professional advice.
Yeah, I mean, just for this particular edition of the Isle of Man in Daba, it talks about bringing or finding stability in an uncertain world, and we know that countries worldwide are assessing the impact of U.S. policies, especially when it comes to tariffs. How exposed to that sort of policy uncertainty and aggression is the Isle of Man?
Firstly, let me say the Isle of Man doesn't rely on the USA for any grants, so that is a positive. Generally, the Isle of Man will follow the UK, and right now, the UK is looking quite good as far as the exposure goes. We do rely on the UK for defence, so let's hope we don't have to rely on anyone has to rely on their defence force for defence, but we do rely on them for that as well.
No.
But I think as far as the latest geopolitical positions, it's very much a wait and see.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We do have to wrap up the conversation, Marion. That was Marion De Carte, Senior Client Relationship Manager for Boston Limited.